Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro, where I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, who, along with my co-host, who is best known for his role of Jimmy Floyd in the Kansas City Massacre, where he famously said, "Where's Mosh here?" And I hope I did that accent right. So we'll see. So, Ike Eisenmann.
Oh,
Ike, how are you today?
I'm doing good. You're glad you brought up. That's a title I don't think about often, and that was one of the more fun shows I got to do. I got to tell you, yeah,
That's some nice people in there. You worked with some.
Oh yeah, a lot. It was I can't remember all the names, but I mean, come on, getting to play Pretty Boy Floyd's son, and
yes,
survived in the midst of a big old time Tommy gun gunfight. It was really a blast. That was really a lot of fun.
James Gammon in there. I saw Larry Minetti from Magnum and Gary Sandy from WKRP.
Yeah, it was quite a cast. It was pretty good too, as I recall. It was pretty well done. Examination of that whole crazy time back in I guess it'd be the 30s. I guess is when it was.
Yeah, I would say so.
I'm not sure, maybe 20s or 30s or something like that. But
today, I'll say this. Today, we decided to do today, our top five. We did the top 5 70s sci-fi, and we got a lot of comments. When are we going to do the 80s? So we're going to do the top 5 80s sci-fi films. And I will say, and this was just an excuse so I can mention Star Trek, but
so you can or I can. So you can or I can.
I'll let you. I'll say. Here's the thing. Okay. So this was a lot tougher for me than I thought it was going to be. When we first did it, I thought, okay, there are going to be things that, of course, we're probably going to have this exact same list, and we still may, but there were a lot more titles than I thought there would be to choose from that were like really among my favorites. And here's my criteria. Before we get to you, I want to go your initial thoughts, but here was my criteria. And it was tough because there were a lot of movies that could fall into different categories as well. I didn't know if they were sci-fi necessarily. And we've talked about this before. They could be like horror, it could be comedy, but for these purposes, I'll put them into the sci-fi. And also for my list, I did not put any sequels, I did put sequels, but if I put one of the movie, I did not put it sequel, even though I may like it there because I just wanted to limit it to 5 distinct titles. Your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, we're qualifying this the top 5 sci-fi movies of the 80s in our humble opinions,
right,
not by any objective standard, more than likely. But I think some of them will fit on most people's top 5 lists. Some of them.
You usually have
interestingly
more
enough,
choices than I do usually.
Well, yeah, I do, and I had to knock one of them out because we actually did an entire episode on it. So I ended up removing it, and I brought one over that I don't think about often. It'll be my first pick, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But the 80s was a huge decade for science fiction films, and I had no idea how much until I was invited by a really incredible documentarian by the name of David Weiner, and he does a series of, I call them mega docs because they're 4.5 hour documentaries about genre films. And he started with In Search of Darkness. I think that's where he started, with In Search of Darkness, which is horror films from the 80s. And then he invited me to participate in Search of Tomorrow. These are huge projects with an incredible range of talent and people involved, not only actors, but all kinds of different people from these different films. And he really does give a sense of an overview, a very quick look into what was special, unique, or, maybe not so much so from these films. And he sent me the list that he was covering for In Search of Tomorrow, and I just looked at it and went, oh my gosh, there's so many things on here that I've completely forgotten about. And there's so many that I would love to talk about, but again, for the sake of keeping this a reasonable chunk of people's time, we narrowed it down to 5. So that's my qualification. My qualification for them are which films do I think I say this a bit too often, but what do I want to revisit? What's kind of what's kind of stood the test of time? And well, maybe not so much for me, just for me in terms of my enjoyment level, and maybe not so much for nostalgia's sake, but no, I mean, just films I really loved them in the beginning, and continue to love them to this day, even though a couple of them I don't go to that often, but still I think they're important to me. So, and probably my first one is going to be the most obscure. So I don't know. Do you want to start? Or you want me to start since I kind of dove into that?
Well, I'll let you start. I just want to all right, I'll talk about when it's my turn here. Let's start with you. Your number 5.
Okay. My number 5 is from literally 1984, and it's 1984. Oh, I don't know if you've ever seen the film.
I have seen it once.
You have
once, and I've not revisited. I don't know why. And
oh no, I know.
Like it.
I've only seen it 3 times because it's one of the hardest movies to watch that I have ever seen. Clearly, it's based on George Orwell's 1948 novel titled 1984. About a dystopian society that's being completely controlled by the government, and information is controlled, and pretty much everything pleasurable to humans is outlawed, literally from thought crimes to sex crimes to everything of that nature, and it is so very typical of these dystopian stories. The lead character, played by John Hurt, I mean, Richard Burton's in it, John Hurt is in it, and John Hurt plays the lead character who tries to rail against the system. And in 1984, this story, he fails, where in so many others, usually the main character has some sense of victory at the end of it all, but he ends up being swallowed back up into the very thing he was trying to fight. And I read the book in high school and was overwhelmed by what I was reading. I mean, it's not only a fascinating tale of a dystopian future, but I thought it was just a great work of literature. I mean, the prose is beautiful, and it's so haunting, and it's so interesting. And the film did such a faithful reproduction or representation of the book that I remember when the film came out, one prominent film critic in Los Angeles actually, and I've never forgotten this because it was just struck me as so ridiculous. He said, "Follows the book too closely, nothing new here." And I think that is a direct quote, where so many critics talk about how, the movie was nothing like the book. You can't ever really capture the book. Why do they even try to do this? They've destroyed it. And yet here was such a faithful following that it pissed off some film critic. So for those people who want to try to, especially since 1984 comes up as such a massive reference these days, and in the last couple of years, with just so many of the dynamics that are happening with social media. And
I have so many comments to make on that, but I won't, because we don't do politics. So
no, we don't. No, I'm not, and I didn't bring it up as a political
I know
yes. Reference at all.
It is referenced.
It's an amazing film.
Yeah.
It's an amazing film, but it does touch on so many things that we are grappling with as a society today. And so it can give some background for just thinking about these issues in a way that's really intense. It's really powerful. And as I said before, it's difficult to watch, but beautiful. I mean, it was shot by Roger Deakins, and it has actually some music in it. I don't know if you remember this, by the Eurythmics. They contributed to the soundtrack.
I did not.
Yeah, really, really beautiful, haunting pieces that just keep as a good score, a good appropriate music in a film can do, pulls you very much into the emotional sense of what these characters are dealing with. So anyway, I've only seen it 3 times. When it came out in the theaters, when it first came out on DVD, in about a year and a half ago, I watched it again and I thought, that's pretty much it for me. It's just too tough. It's too tough. So it's that effective. So it's not really the entertaining thing. I would say, yeah, it's a great popcorn Saturday night movie. No, this is you probably got a bottle of vodka and all the lights are out and you're just you just want to get through this gritty film, but it's really amazingly well done. So that's my
I will say this one. It's not on my list. I read the book also in high school, and I remember it bothering me, but it did not bother me as much as Animal Farm. Animal Farm really, really got to me. It was so dark inside afterwards that I only read it that one time. I never read it again afterwards. So
yeah. Wow. I read Animal Farm in high school as well, and I think that got me on for some reason. I don't know if that's typical. It's not usually suggested reading in high school, but I think one of my set teachers thought I might like it because of the types of books I was drawn to at the time, science fiction and Edgar Allan Poe and all, some of these little bit more moody, thought-provoking types of fictional stories. So anyway, she led me that direction, and I don't remember Animal Farm that well. I need to revisit that. So anyway, thanks for bringing it back to my attention.
Well, I'm not going to read it again. It still destroyed me. So I'll go for my 5. And here's the thing. Again, I'm like we did with the other movies, like the other list that we've had. I pulled up sci-fi 80s movies, and if it was on those lists, then I said, okay, I can use them, because there's a couple of them I wasn't sure, and it could go either way, on different genres. But I did, and I'll just say some of the movies that I left off that I really love, which was, let's say, like The Thing and, Final Countdown, which I love. I don't know if you ever saw Final Countdown, which was the
it's been
time
a
travel.
long time. I haven't seen it in a really, 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 really long time, so I barely remember it.
Okay, I might have to do that as a forgotten film one time, but
sure,
and Somewhere in Time, another one that I really love, and all these that I love that didn't make my list, so that I count them all as sci-fi. But here we go. Since it was on the list, and again, I wasn't sure if it should be on comedy or horror, but it was on the sci-fi list. My number 5 is Ghostbusters. Again, I go revisit it. I don't know how many times I watch, and that's to me is the bliss. Is rewatchability. And I don't know how many times I've seen it. I just saw it again because I watched before Ghostbusters Afterlife. So I watched it again. I still enjoy it. It's still a great film. We have ghosts and other dimensions. So I will count that as a sci-fi movie. And it won't leave my list probably. It'll still be on my list, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. But it was just such a fun movie with, that whole cast: Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Ivan Reitman directing. It's just so much fun. And
Rick Moranis, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, it was such a great movie. And I like I said, I will continue watching it still. So I don't know if
I think it qualifies.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the Ghostbusters Afterlife.
No, I have not.
Okay,
no, not.
I thought it was a lot of fun. It definitely was, did a nice job incorporating, getting back, revisiting some of the original movie and, with the cast. So it was a lot of fun. But anyway, that is my number 5.
Awesome. I mean, I love Ghostbusters. I do. And I think it applies here. It's probably not pure enough science fiction for me to have put it on the list here. Yes, it does. It straddles a line, but there's certainly enough of sci-fi elements in it for it to qualify. But no, I love that movie. I mean, yeah, Sigourney Weaver. I don't even know if you mentioned her.
No, I did.
I said Rick Moranis and it just, boy. I mean, yeah, I ate it up. I haven't watched it. I haven't gone back to revisit it in a while. but I watched the heck out of it back in the day. I mean, as soon as I had it on a format that I could, watch it over and over again, I did. So yeah, a lot of fun. Love that movie for sure.
If you say this straddles the line, wait till you hear my number 4. But go ahead, your number 4.
Okay. All right. Well, my number 4. Now, this is where it gets weird. No, not it gets weird, not the title, but my next 4 from 4 to 1 all were released in 1982.
Really?
So
okay.
Unfortunately, I did not. I looked over that list that David gave me, and I tried to stick another title from another year, and I just didn't find one that prevailed for me in terms of this list. So this is going to be interesting, and I know this. No, I'm going to start. I don't know. My number 4 is The Road Warrior with Mel Gibson.
Okay.
I flipped out over that movie when it came out, not knowing it was essentially a sequel, and had to learn about the original film Mad Max, and ended up then digging into that in the old video rental days, when that's where you had to go to look for film history. I thought it was a ridiculously fun, over the top, again, dystopian, world turned upside down story that was just, I mean, gosh, and for no other reason almost other than the stunt work that was done in that film. It just blew me away, and all my friends loved it. And of course, I had it on VHS when it came out, and we wore that tape out. I swear to God, we really did. I still quote lines from it. I think that's another thing that should be a qualifier. What movies, what classic movies do you still quote a line from? And I quote a line from it constantly, and it drives my wife crazy because she has no idea what I'm talking about. And even when I explain it, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, fine. But
does she roll her eyes when you do this? I just wanted to
know. She doesn't know what I'm talking about, so that she has no response to it, okay. Which is fine with me, because I can live in my own little silly world and be perfectly happy all by myself. But yeah, I thought the production design was amazing. I thought the concept was interesting, and not an easy story to flip at the end, and they did manage to flip it at the end somehow. And I think that's what I liked about it, because it seemed like it was a one-track story. I mean, everything happens on one road, going one direction, and you think, where are these people going to end up? I mean, there's no gas. They're trying to run away from these crazy villains who are trying to steal their gas, and just where are they going to go? And then you find out, okay, it's all been a wild goose chase, because I don't know, I eat it up. I think that is a Saturday night popcorn, just want to go along for the ride kind of sci-fi film for me.
Well, all right, here's what I'll say, and you and I have discussed this before, and it's tough for me, and I still will watch the movie. I love Mad Max. I really did. And I love Lethal Weapon and all that. It's where do you draw the line? Can you separate the artist from the work? And that's one of the things for me. And like, since Mel Gibson, he's went over all this anti-Semitic rants and stuff, it was very tough for me to I won't go see new work of his. I'll say that much. I won't go see new work, but I don't want to let him take away my enjoyment of the previous films, because I'll look at those separate. There are a lot of people involved in it, and I like those movies. I'm not going to let him ruin those movies for me, like Mad Max and things like that. But it is tough for me to look at his work and try to take him away from it, if you don't understand what I'm saying. So that's one of the things.
Yeah, no. I mean, you and I share that. It's like when you and I think this is true for everybody, athletes or, artists, musicians, and as well as, actors. I think you nailed it when you said it makes it hard for you you would probably avoid anything new that he does. There are certain people that I feel that way about as well, but I don't want to lose my connection to those classics that that I care about, that that were impactful to me back in the day and still are. I want that. It's too valuable to me.
No, I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like I agree with you in terms of how it affects me.
Yeah, no, so that's one of the things. Like, and I love Maverick. Actually, Maverick is one of my. I think it's such a funny film. But again, something new. I don't know if I could, but it is tough. But like I said, yeah, I won't let it take away my enjoyment of other films of his from beforehand. And I never care about politics. Politics, I don't care about. Someone disagrees with me politically, that's fine. This was tough because of just the things that he said, anti-Semitic stuff.
Oh, sure.
So it was tough. But anyway, let's go into my number 4. My number 4, again, this is straddling a line. And you may hold up that X and disqualify it, but it is on the sci-fi list. And I wasn't going to put it because I put it on my horror list, but it listed as sci-fi, so I did put Gremlins. Gremlins, again, kind of. So it is straddling a line, and I'm aware of it because it's really horror comedy. But we do have those sci-fi elements in there. We have the creature, from these unknown species that we have. So, and like I said, it is listed on those sci-fi lists. So I'm going to count it because it is so much fun. And it's another movie that I revisit I think it might have been on my Christmas movie list too, because it's strange.
It was. Oh yeah. You said you watch it every Christmas.
Right.
I intended to watch it this last Christmas, and I didn't. So I still have to go back and check it out again. So yeah.
It's on my holiday list, it's on my horror list, and now it's on my sci-fi list. It's the jack of all trades movie, and the comedy too for it. But I just enjoy Gremlins so much. It's such a fun movie. And like, I'll revisit it. I will watch it yearly, and I am counting it. I don't care what the judges say. I'm putting it on my list. That's my number 4. Damn it, that's it. So.
No, I think that's what we're allowed to do. That we're allowed to put it where we want.
It's our list. That's it. Okay, I have a feeling that we're going to get up to number 3, and I have a feeling for number 3 on. You and I are going to probably have the shared ones, but we'll see. All right, so you're number 3 now.
All right, this is going to sound completely egocentric, but I have to choose.
I knew it was coming.
I chose Star Trek 2. Star Trek 2: The Wrath of Khan. I love talking about the film.
It is a great
because film. I love the film. One of the things, first of all, of course, I was thrilled to be in it. I was thrilled to be a part of Star Trek. It was always something I wanted to do. And we've talked about this before because we did our Star Trek episode, but just to reiterate, there was very little hope for another film after the first one, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, fared so poorly with the fans and fared so poorly with the reviews, and even though it did well at the box office, it was very uncertain whether or not there was going to be another film at all. And yet Nick Meyer, just when he was tasked with coming up with another Star Trek film, just did the hardest homework possible and dug as deep into the Star Trek lore, as he could to find a way to reintegrate all the characters and make a connection to the original series and move these characters forward. And I've had more people who talk to me about it say they've never seen Star Trek before and they just love it as a science fiction movie. It actually introduced them to Star Trek and had them then going back and saying, what is this all about? And looking at the original series, it's a well-told, well-structured, truly science fiction story that's full of action and full of so many elements that it had to be on my list whether or not I was in it. And again, I'm thrilled to be a part of that history, but I also just love it as a film on its own. And I remember sitting down and watching it for the first time in the theater thinking, my God, this is a great movie. I just got caught up in the movie, and then I showed up on screen and went, oh, that's right. I'm in it. Oh, yeah. I'm in it. And then I wasn't in it. And I went, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be in it more, but I wasn't. And then I had to like forget about all that and just enjoy the rest of the movie. But I just think it's a really good film. And you don't have to know, like I said, other people, you don't have to know anything about Star Trek to enjoy it as a standalone one-off. If you choose, you get enough understanding and backstory from the characters to know they have a history, just like you would in any story. Only they actually have a real backstory. So anyhow, yes, that's my number 3. Is that where we're at? Number 3 pick?
Number 3.
Yeah, number 3.
All right, I will say, okay, Star Trek, if we had gone 6 through 10, Star Trek would have been on my list. Okay, it didn't make my top 5. I love the movie. And I love the one that you were in, Wrath of Khan, and I love number 4, the time travel one. I always flip-flop which one I like more, because I think, and when we did the Star Trek episode, I mentioned to you, I saw Wrath of Khan before I saw Star Trek the motion picture. It's just because I wasn't living in the country when the motion picture came out. So that was my excuse me, that was my revisit to the Star Trek universe. And you've got, that's right, I really love these characters. I really love this. I love this show. I love these characters. And I went back and I rented the first one after I saw the second one, because I just wanted to revisit it. It wasn't as good, but it wasn't bad either. It wasn't like, it did not deserve the derision that a lot of people gave the motion picture one. I didn't think, but I loved it. And this, I didn't even know you. That I was so sad when you died. Spoiler alert. I'm sorry. I should have said that first. I was so sad in the movie. I was so upset in it because I'd grown attached to your character, because I figured, that's a kid that's, roughly, my age, but you're older, but I was so upset about when you died in that film. But I love the Star Trek movies. And again, I love that one. I love number 4. And like I said, for the purposes, I wouldn't put 2 on my list just because I do, but it's always a toss up to me which one I love more. And for the sake of ego building, I'll say Wrath of Khan.
Well, I'm not that fragile, but it's okay.
But it was a great film. And I need to go watch those again too. I need to go watch that whole series again from 1 on and see. And just revisit it. I watched them a couple of years ago with my son, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. But now I got to go revisit it again. So, all right. So my number 3, and this is yours. You'll probably have this on your list. I'm guessing you'll have this on your list, and yours will probably be higher than number 3 for here. I put Empire Strikes Back for my number 3.
Oh.
So,
interesting.
I love this. I love the Star Wars. I love those first 3 Star Wars films. And again, Return of the Jedi, I didn't put on just because, like I said, you can only do one. And Empire Strikes Back was a better film than Jedi, even though I loved Return of the Jedi. But it was, again, so much fun because I got to, after Star Wars, I didn't think there'd be another one. It was, I love Star Wars so much. And then we got to, Return of the Jedi, we got the characters again. And you got to see them, the fighting, and you left on that big cliffhanger. Also, you had 2 cliffhangers in Empire Strikes Back. So it was just great to get to see them on the screen again. And it was even, it was probably even a better film than Star Wars, even though I'll rank Star Wars higher, not in the 80s list, but I'll rank Star Wars higher because it was that first visit into the world. It was just great to get to see those characters again, revisit these characters, revisit that world. And I could not wait for the 3rd movie after that.
Oh, absolutely. Spoiler alert, no, it's not on my top 5 list.
Wow, I'm shocked.
I had to, well, it's like it's so interesting because I love Empire Strikes Back. It's probably one of the best sequels, knowing full well they were going to make a 3rd film. And that's what I liked about it, because I know this is old lore, but how much George Lucas he talked about how much he enjoyed the Saturday serials that he would go see in the movies. And, it was like the original form of a TV series where you saw a story about a character and there was a cliffhanger and it got you to go back the next week to see the next one. And it was still the same characters plus new characters and carrying out the storyline over a period of time. And, I was thoroughly engrossed. I always have been thoroughly engrossed in that film and love the cliffhangers, that they dangled for us. And it's hard for people to, today who, they're trying to do the same thing with some of the other parts of the franchise, to create that sense of anticipation. But man, there was we were palpitating over the idea of that third film. It's like, of course there's going to be a third film. My gosh, what's it going to be? And how long is it going to take? Because I don't know how far apart they were, but what year did Empire Strikes Back come out?
I want to say 82, but now I'm going to have to look it up. I want to say
that's a long time after the first film. And I think it was 3 more years before
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, before that came out. So we waited a long time for these movies. And I think the only thing you could probably compare it to today are the Harry
it was
Potter
1980.
films.
It was 1980. It was right on the cusp there. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes more sense. That's okay. 4 years later, after consuming Star Wars and then hearing about it coming along. It just we were feverish about it and couldn't wait to jump back in and see all of that. And I certainly was not disappointed. It just didn't make my top 5. And I'm not exactly sure why. It's like one of those, there's so many on there that I could say would have slotted in, but they just didn't.
There were also some that were listed on the sci-fi list. And I know I said that if they were on the sci-fi list, I included them, but there were some on that sci-fi movies that I didn't include because to me, they just were not sci-fi. They were like more fantasy, like Labyrinth. I don't consider sci-fi. I consider that fantasy movie. And I love Labyrinth. And Roger Rabbit, the same thing. They had it sci-fi and I didn't consider it that either.
Okay, that's very odd. No, I didn't go to any online lists. I just used the one from David for me to call from because anyway, so I didn't see what else might have popped up in other lists online that might have been considered science fiction, but I certainly wouldn't consider Roger Rabbit.
I'll even say that Raiders has a sci-fi element to it because of the ending, but I didn't put it in I didn't put it in there because it's
it does. I mean, it does in a lot of ways, but yeah.
Oh, now I got to hear. No, so let's go on to number 2. Let's go.
Well, number 2 is looming large behind you, E.T. E.T. is just overwhelming to me. It's overwhelming to me in so many ways. And I don't mind saying this a little bit, maybe a little, I'm a little shy about it, but there's a lot of Witch Mountain references in E.T. That are interesting. And I don't know if they're actual or not, but when the kids are riding their bicycles and ET makes them fly, I thought, okay, goodness gracious, we kind of pull this, not right out of Witch Mountain. And of course I could be just crazy, just wanted to see some connections there, but the whole take on an alien on the planet not being something with a ray gun, looking to wipe us out, that actually is lost and trying to get back home. It was just heart-wrenching. And I think Spielberg's always been, he's good at so many things, and I don't want to take, I can't, I'm nowhere near qualified to take anything away from him, from his adult themed films, but he always knew how to reach inside that, that precious age, where that coming of age story where you're still connected to all the fantasies, and you're learning about the world, and to have such huge hopes and dreams, and he just knew how to represent kids. I don't know, kids' personalities and kids' curiosities, and their protectionism and all of that. And I still find it to be riveting. I bawl like a baby at the end. I can't, if I see that those fingers come together, if I just see a still of it, I get verklempt. It's just it's ridiculous. And I got to have a very interesting personal experience with this movie, because the year before it came out, I worked with Peter Coyote on a film called Cross Creek. And when I was working with him on that film, his career hadn't taken off. E.T., I think, more than anything, launched his film career. And I don't remember the chronology of all of his titles, but we were sitting around the set one day. We had a lot of time hanging out, working on that film. And I was asking him, what else have you done? I didn't really know anything about his work. And he said that he shot E.T. and had the opportunity to be in it. And I freaked out. I completely freaked out. I said, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to see this movie. And I know so many people can't wait to see it. I said, I'm just so excited. I can hardly wait. And I cannot do this little level of performance justice, because I can't really remember the words he said, but it's like, Peter was a really interesting prankster, and he got really solemn, and he said, I don't really know how well it's going to do. I think it's a good film, but I think Spielberg really screwed up when he let E.T. die. I just didn't understand that. And I my jaw dropped. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, oh my God, no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. I really shouldn't have said anything. Don't worry about it. Just go see the movie. Enjoy it. So he dropped a major spoiler alert that was actually a red herring. And I had no idea. So here I am watching the movie for the first time. And sure enough, E.T. dies. He's dying. And I'm going, I can't believe I cursed him a blue streak in my head. I said, that rat bastard, I can't believe you spoiled this whole movie. I don't know now what the heck happens. And then of course we all know where the story goes from there. So I got to have a little bit more of a tease about it, and these preconceived ideas as I'm going in thinking, how is he going to kill this adorable character? You can't kill this character. And so it is meaningful to me in different ways, but I think as just a flip on the sci-fi genre, I still think it's fantastic, and I love it to death.
It's my number 2 as well. So it's
okay. Well, it had to be on the list because it's right behind, the image is behind you. Yeah, it's
my number 2 as well. I just echo everything that you said. I mean, I love the movie, and I've gone back, watched it so many times. When I watched it as a kid, it just got to me. This was so different. And again, like you said, with I love Spielberg's films. I'd be hard pressed to find one that I didn't like. To me, he's like on the Mount Rushmore of filmmakers. That's a good podcast too. We'll have to do that one day, do our 4 greatest filmmakers and see. But to me, he's on there. And the same thing at the end, I start crying, sobbing uncontrollably. It's so bad. But it's just whenever I do watch it, and I feel like a kid again. And here's a little spoiler alert for anyone who is watching it. We will be talking about E.T. with one of the cast members in a few weeks, so just stay tuned for that. But I do get really, I just find myself transported back in time to a kid again. And I love that my kids now enjoy the film as well. I did hate when Spielberg went back and tinkered with it to remove the guns from the the agents. I digitally remove them. I hate when people do that. I hate when Lucas did that, did the same thing when Star Wars. But that movie just takes me back, and that's one of the things that I love about just about good films, that they can take you back to the time when you saw it the first time. And E.T. does. And it does make me feel like a kid again. You do have that sense of wonder, what's out there. And yeah, I would say that the Witch Mountain things are there too. It's, the alien coming there, the aliens being attacked and hunted. And I could so see it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that might have influenced Spielberg at some point, on some level, seeing it, because it came out like around 10 years earlier, not even, I guess. But I could see that, and it does make you think about aliens, and I'm a big thing about aliens, so I'm a total believer. So I always have that sense of wonder, and you want to be that they're good, you want to be that they're kind and they're benevolent, and and trying to help humanity. But I'd much prefer that than to thinking of movies like Aliens where they want to kill you. But yeah, and nothing bad to say about that movie. Anytime I go revisit it, I just love it, and I'm just sitting there like holding myself, like, oh, I'm revisit my childhood. So yeah, that is my number.
Then we have to qualify that it's a Saturday night popcorn movie where you have to cuddle with a very dear friend. Right. just for comfort.
I don't even need someone else. I just like there, because it does transport me back to being a kid. And like I said, I do love that my kids enjoyed it, but I love that it took me back to being a kid again.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Every single time. Definitely.
Okay, well, let's hear. Oh, now I'm wondering if you and I are going to have the same number one.
Oh, I don't know. My pick is Blade Runner. Okay. Again, that was released in 1982. Like I said, these last four films were all 1982, which is amazing to think about. Road Warrior, Star Trek II, E.T., and Blade Runner all like scattered throughout that year. It was certainly a great year for science fiction films, and I was just could not wait to see Blade Runner when I first started seeing trailers of it. Early on, watching other films and just seeing the amazing production value and the whole film noir 40s style applied to the future. And this goes back to our Dark City conversation. That was another film that was actually, the setting was intended to be exactly like the 1940s, not a futuristic version, but the futuristic version of that film style was, to me, just completely delicious. The concept amazing. And it's just a great film. I mean, its only glaring flaw, and we've talked about this in many different shows and different stories, and it's, and I repeat it yet again for David and in Search of Tomorrow, is when that narration was laid over, that Harrison Ford narration, it was just like, oh, I cannot believe this is happening. They're over explaining what's going on as if we're not going to get it. And I've told the story before. I had a chance to meet Ridley Scott not long after the film was released at a barbecue, and I somehow mustered up the courage to ask him about it. I said, please, why did you put that in there? What was the point of that? He rolled his eyes and said he was forced to do it by the producers because they were nervous, and that he and Harrison conspired to make it the worst written, worst sounding narration they could come up with, praying that they wouldn't use it, and they ended up using it anyway. So I only revisit the director's cut, which does not have the narration in it. It is pure, nice and pure and straightforward, and it changes the entire thing, because it's just, God, that almost ruined it. And I'm sitting here watching the film for the first time thinking, this is such an amazing film. What is this? Oh, this god awful narration doing it here. I don't get it. I don't get it. But I think over the long run, it ended up working out. But that's why it's my favorite, because it's just beautiful. I love getting lost in haunting, dark, ethereal films. And, the bottom line is it's really just it's a detective story is really what it is, set in the future. But it plays well for me on so many levels.
It's amazing to me how many good sci-fi films there were in that decade, which I thought we were going to have a ton. You and I only have one match in the entire thing, which is E.T. That's shocking to me.
Well, again, if we'd extended it out to 10 choices, I think would have had a lot more that
oh, for sure,
that we shared. But I like limiting it to 5. First of all, again, for the sake of our audience that we're constantly challenging with their patience. But yeah, just to see where we go. Yeah.
Well, I'll say, first of all, it's either guts or nerve that you went over to him and you've told me the story and asked him, why did you put that in there?
It took so much courage. And I thought, we were standing alone. I had a beer. I don't know. I was a small barbecue, like most of the people that I had been invited to. And I didn't even know he was there. He just came out and I couldn't even believe, I think he was probably, pleased that he got recognized by somebody, because I knew who he was. And he had a beer and I had a beer, and I thought, what am I going to talk to Ridley Scott about? I'm a huge Aliens fan. I loved Legends, which I think came out before Blade Runner. I really liked that movie, and a lot of people didn't like that movie. And so I, prefaced it first by telling him how much I, adored his work, and I was so grateful that he was out in the world making these movies. And then my stomach churned and got nuts, and I thought, when am I ever going to get? It's not like I'm going to get another chance to ask this man this question. And so what if he doesn't, if he's offended by it? He's too great a filmmaker to be offended by something like that. I knew it had to be, I've been around the business my whole life. I know we make choices and have to sometimes make choices for whatever reason. And so it just came out, and I was so relieved when he said, he just said, oh, that was just, I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it. It wasn't my thing. They made me do it. And, I've heard many Hollywood stories like this about many different things that filmmakers were forced to do, because producers, and I say producers at the executive level, when it gets time for distribution, all of a sudden your final cut, you're screening it for everybody who's put all of their money. They're going to risk, theater space in when another movie could be there. They want to make sure it does as well as possible. And that's when the insecurities start to sneak in. And I don't know if they screened the film, and some people were perhaps a little confused over what was going on. But, I think for me, where I love science fiction the best is when it's at its purest. We've gone back to the 70s, where I chose THX 1138 as my favorite from the 70s. It's one of my favorite of all time, because it is such a pure science fiction film. It is intended to cause some confusion. You're left with some questions, but yet you move through it in a way that reveals these hints about this dystopian nature of this entire story set in a future. And no one knows what the future is going to be like, except for Stanley Kubrick. He was the only one that knew. But anyway, so that's, yes, it was some guts. I was very nervous of bringing it up.
How dare you question my,
He could easily have done that, but I don't know if he had been asked that question yet. He may have been asked it a number of times and realized, that's the other thing about a director. When this is just insider stuff. Some people know this, some people don't. A lot of people don't. But before you become, and I don't know if Ridley was a producer on the film. See, that's another thing, because even sometimes if you're a producer on a film and the director, your power is limited, because according to DGA rules, the Directors Guild of America, contractual rules with producers. As a director, you are allowed the first cut of the film. After that, the producers can come in and recut your film as many times as they want to make it suit their marketing needs.
Oh, wow. I did not know. Wow.
Bigger directors, I don't know if Ridley had final cut at that point. When directors become powerful, they negotiate final cut. In other words, the way they cut their film, their vision for that film goes. That's how it goes. The producers can't change anything. And I don't know if Ridley had final cut at that point. So he was then forced to do something that they would have done anyway without him, if he was in that position. I have absolutely no idea, because I didn't, really follow that stuff that as closely at the time, but that's just a dynamic of the way the business works, the power structure. The closer you get to just releasing the film, the more and more and more and more nervous producers become, and they're constantly trying to find any weakness they can and fix it before it actually goes to the theaters. And some things are recut like a day before they're going to strike prints.
Wow.
It's that back when they actually struck prints, when they actually had to process prints to go to movie theaters. So it can be it can be crazy, really crazy.
This is one of the reasons I love doing this show with you, because I've learned all these things that I did not know. But wow, I'd be pissed if someone took my film and
That's why these people are so thick-skinned. It's you get churned up a lot.
Well, all right. So here we go. Here's my number one, which I am shocked it's not on your list. I really am. And not only is it my number one sci-fi film from the 80s, it's my all-time favorite film. Period. It's one. So you got to know.
The Black Hole.
No, close.
I was so worried that was going to be your choice. Anyway, go ahead. No, I can't guess.
Actually, I looked. There are not many. I looked to find people to bring on from the Black Hole. There are not many alive, and that's the sad. So,
oh wow.
That's wow. But no, my number one is Back to the Future, my all-time favorite movie, and I still, and again, I've seen this movie over 100 times. It's not even a lie, not even, I'm not even like, making it up, embellishing. I've seen it over 100 times. I love this movie so much. And again, I love that my kids love the movie. When it was reissued into the theater for the anniversary a few years ago, I took the kids to go see it in the theater, so we could experience it there. It is such a fun film. Time travel, how much I love time travel films.
Yeah.
I don't grow tired of that movie. It's just like, just fun and anticipating all the things, picturing what you would do in the situation. And I would definitely do what, Marty did in Back to the Future too. I'd be buying that sports book, to place bets. I don't think I'd be able to control myself too, but it's just such a fun movie, such great casting. Everyone was like so perfect in it. And I'm tearing. It has nothing to do with the movie, but it's
folks, he's not crying. I know. No. He's
I love going back and watching that movie again and again and again, and it's just I don't grow tired of it. I don't grow tired of just seeing it. It's like funny, and it's it's sweet, it's funny, and it's like that thing. What if I know that's what the whole premise of the movie. What if you could meet your parents at that age? And that makes you think, would you even be friends with your parents? Would you if you met them at that age? And that's one of the things that makes you wonder, how did your parents become who they are? How did what happened in their life for them to become the type of people that they did become? So it's just filled with fascinating questions. And like I said, I've seen it at least 100 times. I'm sure I'll see it another 100 times at some point again. And so Back to the Future is my all-time favorite movie, and definitely my number one sci-fi movie of the 80s.
I love it. No, I mean, I love that film. And of course, that's it. Yes, not as many times as you, but I can revisit that anytime. It's just so thoroughly entertaining. And yeah, I mean, of course I saw it on the list and I looked at it and I thought, gosh, this is hard not to put in my top 5 here, but I'm again going with and I can't say purist because it is a science fiction film. Absolutely. Anything that's got to do with time travel by nature qualifies as science fiction. But it's, I have to say it's probably on my top, 20 movies that I love to watch, that I've loved forever, because it's just so incredibly entertaining. And you don't have to be a science. I mean, it's not science fiction in terms of challenging science fiction, like some of the things I tend to gravitate towards. It's just fun. I mean, it's just bottom line fun. I have to agree with you.
Well, it's again, just to reiterate, I'm going into this list thinking this is going to be boring because you and I we're going to have all the same top 5. And we only had one. That's incredible to me. That's really amazing to me.
I think so too, but at least we did have one, which I think is awesome. But yeah. Hey, look, that's how this works. I think that's the fun part of doing these, doing these retrospectives, I guess is what you might call it. Finding out, where tastes are, it's just so interesting. But I mean, and I also love doing this because this reminds me of movies I haven't watched in a while that I need to go back and watch for fun again. And Back to the Future is one of them. I have not seen it in a while, and it's time to, including Gremlins. I mean, I love Gremlins. And again, that's another one I haven't seen in quite some time. So yeah, that's the other
I agree with it. Yeah, these lists, when we do this, it does remind me of movies that I do need to see again. But yes,
yeah.
But let us know what you guys think. Let us know what if we missed any that are on your list, your top 5, what you agree with, what you didn't agree with, and as always, thank you for watching. This has been Jonathan Rosen along with Ike Eisenmann for Pop Culture Retro, and please subscribe. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.